May Jesus and Mary be loved by all hearts. Last week, or maybe it's a couple weeks now, we were happy to present an audio reading of our definitive English translation of The Apparition of La Salette, penned by Melanie, including the full text of The Secret. This became known as the Lecce pamphlet because it was issued from the Diocese of Lecce with the imprimatur of its bishop, Zola. I am always reminding Catholics about Jesus' warning that there will be many false prophets and we must be careful to vet the messenger. Bishop Zola wrote a number of letters to esteemed colleagues to explain his reasons for publishing the full text of La Salette. One letter to a priest in France is so moving and so scholarly that within a year it began to be attached as a preface to the Lecce pamphlet. The bishop takes pains to defend the most contested part of the Marian apparition, namely the harsh complaints about the sins of bishops, priests, and religious. Bishop Zola died in the odor of sanctity 20 years later. After his death, many healings were attributed to his intercession. Under Pope Pius XI, his body was exhumed and found intact. In 1941, under Pius XII, his cause for canonization was started, but didn't proceed in the confusion of World War II. The apparition of La Salette was volatile from the earliest days. The reaction of many prelates was to shoot the messenger with a smear campaign. The reaction of many defenders was to embellish the message with their interpretations. This confusion continues to spread at an accelerated pace thanks to the internet. For this reason, Theotokens have worked very hard to acquire accurate information, and soon you'll be able to read in English the monumental book of the Mariologist, Father René Laurentin, who will present the original text read personally by Pius IX and Leo XIII, and discovered recently in the Vatican archives by a priest who had made La Salette his life study. In the meantime, this short defense by Bishop Zola is a gem that deserves your attention. I asked my good friend Brian Murphy in California to narrate the text because I want to draw your attention to Brian's work as chairman of an important pro-life teaching ministry, godsplanforlife.org. It's not a website that will entertain you with flashy colors and music clips. Instead, you'll find profound, short documents which deal directly with the very sins that Mary complains about in her message at La Salette. Brian has his own studio and kindly agreed to read the Letter of His Excellency Salvatore Aloysius Zola, Bishop of Lecce, Italy, written to Father Isidore Roubaud in France, May 24, 1880, about 6 months after Zola had given his imprimatur to the full text of The Secret. Thank you, Brian.
Father, I deeply deplore the opposition that France is now making to the heavenly message of La Salette. We are already on the eve of the terrible chastisements with which the Mother of God has threatened us because of our prevarications, and yet we prefer to reject the warnings of a mother so tender and merciful rather than to take advantage of their lessons. This is the only action on our part that could diminish the intensity of the plagues with which the divine anger threatens us. I recognize in this the work of our old enemy, who has the greatest interest in exploiting any means, especially with the ministers of God. Your pious belief and filial devotion to Our Lady of La Salette urges you to ask many things and acquire information about Melanie's secret. Yet I find myself embarrassed by attempting to satisfy your desire with a simple letter. However, I will try to comply with all of your wishes as much as possible. It was not until July 3rd, 1851, that Melanie wrote her secret for the first time at the convent of the Providence of Correc by order of Bishop de Briard of Grenoble. and in the presence of Mr. Benjamin Dowse, Chief Engineer of Bridges and Paved Roads, and of Father Taxis, Canon of the Cathedral of Grenoble, Melanie completed 3 large sheets all at once, without saying anything, without asking anything. She signed it without rereading it, folded up her secret, and put it in an envelope. She wrote the address to His Holiness Pius IX at Rome. On July 6th, the secret was rewritten by Melanie herself at the bishop's residence at Grenoble for the purpose of distinguishing more clearly between the dates of certain events which would not occur at the same time. Melanie, when writing the first time, put only the date, then feared that the Pope would not understand clearly because there was some ambiguity. On July 18, 1851, Father Gérin, pastor of the Cathedral of Grenoble, together with Father Rousselot, honorary vicar general, 2 holy priests of mature age and very respectable in all aspects, presented to His Holiness Pius IX the letters of the Bishop of Grenoble, and thus of Maximin and Melanie containing their secrets. Melanie did not send to His Holiness Pius IX the complete secret, but only what the Blessed Virgin inspired her to write to him as being important for that document, such as things which could affect Pope Pius IX personally. However, as a result of information that I am now giving you, which is very precise, I know that the reproaches addressed to the clergy and to religious communities are identical to those contained in the secret given to His Holiness Pius IX. The Blessed Shepherdess of La Salette later communicated to various people some other parts of the secret when she judged that the opportune moment for her to publish them had arrived. But the publication of the complete secret only came after, in the pamphlet written by Melanie herself and printed at Lecce in 1879, at the request and expense of a pious person. In 1860, in Marseille, one of Melanie's directors obtained a manuscript of the secret. It was handed over to me in 1869 when I was the spiritual director of Melanie by order of Bishop Petagna of the Diocese of Castellamare di Stabia. On January 30th, 1870, Melanie delivered into the hands of Father Félicien Bliard this same document, the one of 1860, with her declaration of authenticity and her signature, but containing some slight reservations indicated by ellipses and by etc., with which she had replaced certain parts of the secret that she did not deem necessary yet to reveal. The part concerning priests and religious was almost entirely in place. On February 24, 1870, Father Bliard sent a certified copy from Nice to Father Semenko, consultor of the Roman Index and superior of the Polish seminary. He did the same to several dignitaries of the church. However, the secret of the Shepherdess of La Salette had already spread everywhere in manuscripts, especially among religious communities and among the clergy. In 1873, Father Félicien Bliard published the secret as he had received it from Melanie in 1870, with his scholarly comments in a brochure entitled Letters to a Friend About the Secret of the Shepherdess of La Salette. This pamphlet appeared in Naples with the approbation given April 30th, 1873, by the Curia of His Eminence Cardinal Sisto Rero Storsa, Archbishop of Naples. I myself can certify the authenticity of this approbation and also the authenticity of the letter that I sent to Father Félicien Bliard, dated May 1st, 1873, after my elevation to the See of Ugento, which was printed on the first page of the aforementioned brochure. Mr. Claude Régis Girard, the learned director of La Terre Sainte in Grenoble, having received the secret from Father Félicien Bliard, published it as early as 1872 in his book entitled Les Secrets de la Salette et leur importance, The Secrets of La Salette and Their Importance. This brochure was the first of 5 important articles which appeared later in succession and which were intended by the author to confirm the revelations of La Salette, as well as to defend them from the attacks of the enemies. These works by Mr. Girard have been honored with the approval and blessing of His Holiness Pius IX, and with the encouragement of several Catholic theologians and bishops. The supplement to L'Avenir dévoilé, The Future Unveiled, also contained the message of La Salette, virtually in conformity with that published by Father Félicien Bliard. I will also tell you that for several years, as abbot of the Canons Regular of the Lateran at Santa Maria de Piedragrota in Naples, in my capacity as superior of the order, I had the opportunity to maintain relations with very respectable prelates and princes of the Roman Church. They were fairly well informed about Melanie and her secret. Almost all of them had already received the text. Moreover, all of them, without a single exception, gave an entirely favorable judgment of the divine revelation and of the authenticity of the secret. I'll just mention a few of them. Bishop Petagna of the Diocese of Castellammare di Stabia, who has kept the Good Shepherdess of La Salette under his guardianship for many years. Archbishop Mariano Riccardo of the Diocese of Sorrento. His Eminence Felipe Maria Cardinal Guidi. His Eminence Cardinal Sisto Riano Storsa, Archbishop of Naples. These holy and venerable shepherds have always spoken to me in such a way as to confirm the deeply held belief in my own heart, which has now become unshakable in the divine supernatural origin of the revelations contained in the secret of the Shepherdess of La Salette. I also found it on good authority that our Holy Father, Leo XIII, also received this same complete document bearing my imprimatur at Lecce. I do not forget, dear Father, that the secret contains very hard truths addressed to the clergy and religious communities. One feels one's heart oppressed and one's soul terrified when one considers such revelations. If I could dare, I would ask Our Lady why she has not ordered them to be buried in eternal silence. But who shall question the one who is named the seat of wisdom? Our duty is to profit from her lessons. However, the complaints of our very merciful Mother and the reproaches addressed to the pastors and to the ministers of the altar would not be given without cause. And this is not the first time that heaven addressed itself to the clergy with similar reproaches that were destined to become public. We find them in the Psalms, in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, in Isaiah, in other books, in the works of the fathers and prelates of the church, in the sermons of bishops, and many writings which have been made in recent times by saints. Examples are in the letters of St. Catherine of Siena, in the writings of St. Hildegard, of St. Bridget, of the Blessed Margaret Mary Alacoque, of Sister Nativity, the Ecstatic of Niederbronn, Elizabeth Eppinger, Sister Marie Lataste, and the Servant of God Elizabeth Cannon Mora. I could also mention the revelations of St. Teresa of Avila, St. Catherine of Genoa, Mary of Agreda, Catherine Emmerich, the Venerable Anna Maria Taigi, and many others. It is certain, however, that one should not take at face value the general expressions concerning the reproaches addressed to the clergy and to the religious communities, for there is a language which is proper to the prophetic style. Therefore, the expressions of the secret, like prophetic expressions of our holy books, cannot inspire us with contempt or defiance, for these will always be deserving of our respect, esteem, and confidence. We rejoice, moreover, when we see in the bosom of the Church pastors and ministers resplendent with the brilliance of knowledge and holiness. How many faithful souls, how many truly noble, generous souls can we not find there, full of charity, eager for devotion and sacrifice? Perhaps, Father, you who see so many fervent ministers of God flourishing around you will find it difficult to understand the humiliating revelations and the threatening and terrible words addressed by the august Mother of God to the priestly phalanx. Ah, if it were the same everywhere. But let us not forget, sir, that the Holy Mother embraces with her gaze the whole universe, and that her eyes, so pure, can be saddened by many things that we can neither know about nor even suspect. However painful and humiliating it may be for us to hear the revelations that fall from the Virgin's lips of the good Mother, let us beg her to obtain for us the grace of God, to receive them gratefully and with full knowledge and understanding. Nothing except our docility will be able to lessen the rigor of the punishments reserved for us and hasten the coming of the reign of justice and peace. As for the secret printed in Lecce, I assure you that it is identical to the one given to me by Melanie in 1869. She has only filled in some gaps, small omissions, which, however, were far from adding or taking anything away from the substance of this document. I myself had it examined by my episcopal curia, according to the rules of the Church. My Vicar General, having found no reason that could oppose the publication of the secret, issued his license to print in these terms, nihil obstat imprimatur, to the person who wanted to publish it at his own expense and according to his pious intentions. This approval, as can be seen at the end of the booklet, was truly and entirely written by Melanie Calvat, shepherdess of La Salette, also surnamed Matthew. It is not possible to raise doubts about the authenticity of this booklet. As for what concerns the person of Melanie, the hatred of unbelievers and the wicked had sought to debase this pious woman, this virtuous and privileged soul, making her the target of their detestable and crude calumnies and their proud disdain. I can attest before God that she is in no way deceitful, nor foolish, nor deluded, nor proud, nor self-serving. On the contrary, I had the opportunity to admire the virtues of her soul, as well as the qualities of her mind throughout the time I had her under my spiritual direction, that is, from 1868 to 1873. Later on, after my elevation as abbot of the Canons Regular of the Lateran near Naples, and then as bishop of the Diocese of Ugento near Lecce in Apulia Puglia, the heel of Italy, I was unable to look after her direction, but I wanted to continue my correspondence with her. I can affirm that up to this moment, her edifying life, her virtues, her writings have deeply engraved in my heart the feelings of respect and admiration which I must rightly cherish toward her. Our Holy Father, Leo XIII, in 1879, deigned to honor Melanie with a private audience and also to charge her with composing the constitution of the new order called for and demanded by Our Lady of La Salette and entitled The Apostles of the Last Times. To complete this task, the former shepherdess stayed for 5 months in the convent of the Visiting Nuns in Rome. During this time, she became better known and more esteemed, especially by those good nuns who gave very favorable attestations regarding this blessed shepherdess of La Salette. Finally, I note from my information that Mr. Nicholas, lawyer at Marseille, being in Rome on Holy Saturday, 1880, was asked by His Holiness Leo XIII to write a brochure explaining the entire secret so that the public would understand it properly. This information will suffice, I believe, to confirm your belief. I would have much more to say to you, but I don't want to go on any longer in a letter about a matter that could only be worthily and completely dealt with in a book. Please accept, my dear Father, the sentiments of my respect and highest esteem, your very humble servant in our Lord, Salvatore Aloysius Zola, Bishop of Lecce.